early African Americans, pioneers, special elect category, direct special. In other words, you didn't go through the nomination; it was a special election. So
Right.
you were just elected, and then you didn't have to go through the nomination. And the first one to go under that category was someone who shouldn't have had to go under that category at all, Goose Tatum of the Harlem Globetrotters, because Goose Tatum was known all over the world, much more than Bill Russell, even because the Harlem Globetrotters got around.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but still, the first year he was the one that got in under that category, and the second year, my grandfather. Early African Americans, pioneers, special elect category, direct special. In other words, you didn't go through the nomination; it was a special election. So
Right.
you were just elected, and then you didn't have to go through the nomination. And the first one to go under that category was someone who shouldn't have had to go under that category at all, Goose Tatum of the Harlem Globetrotters, because Goose Tatum was known all over the world, much more than Bill Russell, even because the Harlem Globetrotters got around.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but still, the first year he was the one that got in under that category, and the second year my grandfather was elected to the Hall of Fame. I was
Wow.
just up there a weekend before last, doing a book signing and a lecture in the Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. Um, and boy, that place has really changed in the last 11 years since my grandfather was inducted. It's much more interactive now. Um, if you're looking for a place to take your kids to learn about basketball, Springfield, Mass. That's the place to be.
You know, I think as you tell this story, what strikes me is the tenacity. Um, you could have given up after the first year or the second year, maybe even the third year, but you continue to move forward because I'm sure that this story was that important to you that you knew that your grandfather's name needed to be immortalized. What was it that kept you going? That said, I'm just going to keep trying.
Well, I felt strongly that he was worthy. I felt that it was a story that needed to be told. From my degree in history from Tuskegee, I knew that the dots connected and he should be there. And so my wife and I, we just kept at it, and we kept doing interviews, and we did a program with the Smithsonian on the emergence and legacy of Black basketball. Um, oh, and the other partners were Howard University and the National YMCA. Through my work as a nonprofit, the Tenant Hill Heritage Foundation, um, I've built this tenacity to not take no, that whenever there's a no, there's always an answer, or there's a door is shut, there's a window that's open, and so I just felt that it was something that would happen.
Well, what's also amazing to me is that, well, a couple of things. One, the relationship between you and your grandfather. I mean, it says a lot that he left you his home and you moved into his home and you learned more about him. I'm picturing the relationship that you had as you were growing up. And the other part is um, he was a big student of history from what I've read so far, and you are a huge student of history, and you continue not just with his story, but to preserve African American history overall.
I learned an appreciation for African American history from my grandfather, through his books, through his contacts, and through, the various places where we lived. I grew up in Tuskegee, Alabama, which was a very rich African American cultural environment. My family was from Washington, D.C., another very rich cultural environment.
Mm.
We spent our summers at a place called Highland Beach, which was started by Frederick Douglass's son. Okay. And so I came through this naturally. I mean, you might look at me and you might wonder, oh, you're mixed. Yeah, but my mind is African American. I'm socialized as an African American.
Mm.
And I probably know more about African American history and African history than the average person, or even a darker complexion. Doesn't matter how light you are.
Exactly.
It's what's up here that counts. And I'm very black up here.
I like that. And you're very black up here. And that's something that you experienced a lot growing up is, because of your lighter skin, maybe people thinking that you weren't black enough or you didn't know enough about the history or anything like that?
And I was always second guessed, yeah. Or
Mm.
sometimes they say, "Oh, you must be the police," or some other idiotic point of view, you know. But yeah, I I love black people,
Mm.
okay, and I have always been. Um, when I was in college, they wanted me to take this course called Western Civilization. You know, I rejected that. And I got into a big argument with my professor. He was trying to be nice, but I told him, ain't no way the Greeks invented civilization.
So you were that young man that was always challenging.
I was very challenging. You know, and I was with a group of people. We would always be challenging, our professors, particularly if they were, well, I was always challenging. But I grew up kind of radical too. I growing up in Tuskegee, there was a radical element. Stokely Carmichael, when he came to Alabama to go to Lowndes County to start the Black Panther Party, one man, one vote. A lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah.
He used to come by and visit with my father, who was also a Howard University alumni. And I would try to stay up to hear what they were talking about, as I was supposed to be asleep. And, and Tuskegee, I was born in a time when I was born 3 months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in Montgomery, and so I was on the front lines of the civil rights struggle. Yeah, I've been called the N-word. I have experienced prejudice and discrimination, but also you have to understand that your parents shielded you from a lot of that as well. When we used to travel from Alabama up here to Highland Beach every summer, my mother would say, "Oh, we're going to have a picnic. I fried some chicken. We're going to stop on the way and have a picnic, and we're going to stop and stay at the Webb's house in Greensboro." But those were things that they told us because you may not be able to get a room to sleep in at night. You may not be able to be served at a restaurant on the way up through the Jim Crow South. And so your parents were shields against that ugliness that we know as segregation and discrimination.